We have reached and passed our crossover altitude, so now you can see Mach 0.844, and we almost approach our final cruising level of 390. So in case of high climb rates, what you could do is you can select vertical speed, since you do not want to have a TCAS since you approach your level of altitude too fast and somebody's crossing above it. So now 1500 feet to go, I would put it to vertical speed plus 1000. And obviously every time you have a FMA mode change, the pilot monitoring would call this out, and it would be confirmed by the pilot flying, so that both guys are in the loop. So there we go. So we got 1000 to go. So this was the altitude alert, in this case 900 feet before reaching our cruising level, or selected altitude in this case, or selected flight level. And now when we reach cruising altitude at cruise level, we would put the TCAS to below, which I cannot select here. And then we would start with our fuel checks. Usually around one fuel check every hour is sufficient. So we got alt. Now VNAV path, put the VNAV bag on. And we have reached our cruising altitude. And then the progress page, or VNAV cruise page, is what I like to keep open at that time. Yeah, the cruise page also recommends you what flight level is optimum, so 379er, which is a little bit below our cruising altitude. And usually there would be a recommended altitude. That is something you can take a look at, and that helps you to decide which cruising level is suitable for your flight today. Here you see our destination, Casablanca. We will reach at 21:31 Zulu time, and estimated remaining fuel at Casablanca will be 20.2, and our CMR, so company minimum required fuel, or other companies call it reserve fuel, is I think we put it to 12.0. Yeah, so 12,000 pounds is our reserves, and which gives us an extra margin of 8.2, so 8,200 pounds extra when we reach Casablanca. This gives us just some time for bad weather, extra holding fuel in that case, just some extra time, so you don't have to sweat about it. Like if it would indicate 12.2, something like this, you would get a little bit nervous, because you constantly have to check the fuel and make sure that you will not arrive below your required reserve fuel. Then you would perform fuel checks. For example, RTEX will be reached with 39.5 at time 1926. And my flight plan indicates to me that RTX should be with fuel of 35.6. So we still have for like 4 tons, not tons, 4,100 pounds extra. So basically this indicates us as well that there's a positive trend, and we would write down that information on our flight plan. So at the point RTX, I would write down our time when we arrived this airport, this waypoint, and the fuel we have in our tanks when we reach that waypoint. And then you would compare it to the fuel indicated on your flight plan, which was 35.6, and then basically the difference between those, if it's a positive number, it's good, you have extra. If it's a negative number, basically you're consuming too much fuel, or you had some major delays, and then you really have to check, can we make it to destination, to our destination airport? Do we have to divert, or can we choose another flight level? Maybe can we fly slower? And usually if you fly slower up to a certain down to a certain point, you can reduce the fuel flow. So that is something you would have to figure out in that instance. So in this case here, checking for suitable airports along our route, we got Lima Fox Bravo Delta, which is Bordeaux, and I checked the chart here, so they have 2 runways, and runway 05, runway 23 is almost 10,200 feet long. So that could be a suitable airport concerning the runway. And the next thing that I would check would be the weather. So after making sure that the weather is fine at Bordeaux Airport, I would take the fixed page, put this in here, and make my 100 nautical mile circle. So now I see that I'm within the 100 mile ring, and so that would be one option to divert to in case we experienced any difficulties which make us divert. I always like to have more options, so I would keep scanning for other airports which I could use. So Victoria is a place that I know, and then I would just go into my chart and check the runways of these airports, and the one with the biggest runway, and also an airport maybe which I know and where the weather is nice, is definitely an airport that I would consider diverting to in case anything happened. So like I talked about before, Victoria is a place that I know, and by checking the chart I can see they have an RMP approach runway 22, or for runway 04 they have a ILS category 3 until 75 meters of RVR. So even in low visibility that could be an option. Also the runway is 11,400 feet long, and the weather seems suitable at the time. So that would be a option I would consider as an en route alternate. So we'll put my 100 nautical mile ring, and you see their overlap here. So in between those circles I can basically, on my own judgment and according to the judgment of the whole crew, flight crew, we can make a decision which airport we would favor in that case. Now check out those pretty amazing views here from the flight deck. think they did a really nice job of modeling this airplane. I really enjoyed with the Microsoft Flight Simulator. The only thing I have to adjust is the handling of the aircraft, which is not set correctly. It's really sensitive to all inputs, so I have to figure that one out. Okay, we're still in cruise. Got pretty dark out there, and I'm forwarding here a little bit so we reach our destination a little bit faster. So elapsed time 1:49, and this is one of our alternate airfields. So we're already approaching the 100 nautical mile circle for this airport, and this 25 nautical mile marker is our arrival airport in Casablanca. So I'm going to check the weather, and I have set this to live. So the weather in Casablanca as of right now should be wind 290, 11 knots. So runway 35, we're going to have a little bit of a crosswind, 60 degrees cross. Cavalcade 25 degrees, QNH 1010, no significant change. And the forecast predicts also nothing severe. Our alternate airfield, Golf Mike Tango Tango, which is indicated by the green circle. We have actually recent rain and wind 080, 22 knots. Definitely a little bit higher winds, but all within limits. It's Cavalcade, so no low vis. And our second alternate, Lima Echo Zulu Lima. Yeah, really hot here, 35 degrees, wind 230, 6 knots, and also nothing significant. So basically, if the winds would be a limiting factor at our first alternate, we could decide that we want to update our alternate to Lima Echo Zulu Lima, and then we have to check within the flight plan what our new reserve fuel would be, since the distance to that airfield is going to be different, and we would have to check if we could still comply with the fuel. But what usually happens if we have like 3 alternates, before we even start the flight, we make sure that we have fuel to reach all our alternates, and we also make sure that the weather there is accordingly. And we're getting close to our top of descent, so it's time to set up the aircraft. So we expect the ILS Zulu 35 left. We check if it is in our route. ILS Zulu 35 left via COTAG and the 201 Alpha arrival. That is basically what we've planned, and we're gonna fly that tonight. So we get fuel of 22.9, and we arrive with 20.7. That is 2,200 pounds less. So now time to calculate. So we take 411, so our gross weight, minus 2.2. So now our estimated landing weight is 409.3. And we want to fly flaps 25. We insert it here. And since the wind, yeah, actually it was only 11 knots. So we can leave +5 for now. If we see the wind it's gonna pick up, we usually take half the wind speed. So that is fine for now. So the ILS is already pre-selected, 109.9, we checked that. Final approach course 345, that is also checked. And let's see if I can enter. I can do that, and for the missed approach. Yeah. So we checked the nav setup. Unfortunately, we cannot use FMC message. What does it say? Oh, I reset MCP altitude. So by that time, we would ask for a descent, and if they would clear us down to, let's say, flight level 220 for now. I'm gonna set that. Sometimes they tell us to descend at own discretion, so I would put 220 in here, check that we are in VNAV path, and as soon as we hit top of descent, the airplane is going to follow the VNAV path, which it has calculated, and descend according to our path. This makes it pretty easy for me. Of course, I have to cross-check and monitor that we still comply with all crossing restrictions, and it often happens that you get a shortcut, and if you get a shortcut pretty quick, sometimes it is best to pre-plan and to descend below the profile if you really anticipate some major shortcuts during the arrival. FMC message, drag required. So it is already telling us that we need some drag, otherwise it is going to overspeed. So throttle idle. Get rid of that. Okay. And I should have changed the speeds beforehand. So 0.84/290 makes way more sense for the descent speed, and you would obviously cross-check this with your colleague and only execute it if he confirms it. So I'm gonna select auto brakes 3 for now. The runway is like pretty long. Got the ILS set, and we checked the minimums for Cat 1. This is a category D aircraft, so it's going to be 870. This is an absolute pain to set this. So idle goes back to idle. This takes forever. If any of you guys has any recommendations how to do that faster, I would gladly appreciate it. So 870 is set, borrow. You would turn this to radio in case you would fly a category 2 or cat 3 approach, which we are not doing today. So this is our VNAV path indicator. When this is in the middle, basically it tells us that we are right on the path. And here we see also a deviation of like 42 feet for now. Then we would check the waypoints. I can set this to 1010. This was altimeter setting for Casablanca. Okay, so legs page, and then we go Tuzor, drag required. Okay, it's not able to hold the speed. So Tuzor with no restrictions, DRED, Bisme, Godpoo, Kotak, which is our initial approach fix. Then from Kotak let me check the transition here. Yeah, there's an initial approach. So from Kotak via Sierra Lima Kilo, and then we turn onto the final. So the 93 indicates 9.3 miles from India November Romeo, which is our ILS DME. Then the 51 5.1, runway 35 right. Then we cross the November Uniform Alpha NDB for the go around, and then we turn track 255 Birov, and we hold at 4,000 feet. And there's actually no speed restriction. So that is checked. And let's turn it down to flight level 100. And then we would perform a briefing. So a briefing for our arrival would go something like this. We are cleared via the 201 Alpha. We have already checked the waypoints, but we would check the waypoints together and confirm them with any restrictions. So since today we are not assuming any shortcuts, it's gonna be the arrival with the initial transition for runway 35 right. And via Kotak we go direct inbound Sierra Lima Kilo. We can descend all the way down to 3,600 feet. And then we turn onto our final 9.3 miles at 3,600 feet is our platform altitude. And at 9.3 miles we start our descent down to minimum 870. We need an RVR of 550 feet. In case of a go around, it will be initially straight ahead until the NDB November Uniform Alpha, and then we make a left turn 225 track to Birov, climbing 4,000 feet. MSA in the highest sector toward the southeast, all the way up to 3,800. Let's call it 4,000 feet to keep that in mind. And airfield elevation is 660 feet. So we should be stable. Let's call it 1,700 feet, which is later on indicated by the white bar on the altitude indicator. No special speed restrictions. Transition altitude is 4,000 feet. That is something we would put in our forecast. And usually you would put in transition level. And you would get this one out of the ATIS. And I would assume if you have a lower QNH than 1013, you would increase the transition level to like 050. So let's just put 050 in for now. But obviously you would reference this to the ATIS or what the tower tells you in some instances. Okay, after landing, 35 right, we will vacate to the right, most likely via high-speed exit uniform 1. And then we make a right turn onto Tango. And then we join most likely at Papa to apron Bravo O Juliet. And we go to our parking gate, most likely Terminal 2, something like Bravo 5, Bravo 6, we'll see later on. And then I would brief the fuel. Upon arrival, we expect 20.5 tons, which gives us 8.5 extra. That gives us a little bit of time to think. And in case of a go-around, we can easily fly that without thinking too much about the fuel. Weather is good, both for arrival and alternate. Just a little bit windy, but everything within limits. Then I would ask my colleague if he has any questions, and we should do the descent checklist. So, descent checklist, recall. Yeah, this message is nonsense. Recall checked, auto brake free, landing data, which we inserted. So flaps 25, 153, minimums 870 baro. Approach briefing completed, descent checklist completed. Okay. Already turning this all the way down so we can use this later on the ground. You would obviously not do this in real life. So you can see we are really on path within like 20 feet, looking good. Let's just pretend that they cleared us all the way down to 3,600 feet to make it easy, which is our platform altitude for the ILS. So the green banana is close to the area where our final approach begins. So that is good. That's where we want to be. And we can check the legs again. And you can put speed restrictions in here, which the 787 seems to be doing automatically. In the 7.5, usually what the airplane gives you at the final approach point, in most cases it's gonna read like 170 knots and slash 3,600 for this approach. But here 158 is already our flaps 25 BREF plus our wind additive. So 158, we could be definitely faster than that. We don't have to be that slow. And for this point, which seems to be 13 miles out, we could already be a little bit slower than 212 knots.